Welcome back to the channel where we remember the women who once lit up the screen, the stage, and the hearts of millions. In this second part of our tribute, we continue honoring American female celebrities who sadly passed away in their 70s. While some found peace after long lives, others faced painful endings, whether through sickness, heartbreak, or quiet struggles the world never saw. These were women who shaped generations with their talent, their strength, and their stories. They may have aged gracefully in the public eye, but behind every smile was a journey filled with personal battles, memories, and sometimes lonely goodbyes. Today, we look back on the last days of their lives, the reasons behind their deaths, and the lasting impact they leave behind. These weren't just famous names, they were real people with real stories, and they deserve to be remembered. Skeeter Davis, the legendary American country singer whose voice once echoed across radios around the world, but whose final days were filled with silence, pain, and a quiet goodbye. Skeeter passed away on September 19, 2004, at the age of 72 after a long and difficult battle with breast cancer that had returned and spread through her body, leaving her unable to perform or even sing in her last years. By 2001, her illness had fully taken over, and she spent her final months in a hospice in Nashville, far away from the stages and lights where she once shined. It was a heartbreaking end for a woman who gave so much to country music and inspired generations of female artists. In her last public appearance, too weak to sing, she stood on stage at the Grand Ole Opry just to say thank you to her fans, those who had loved her since she first asked the world why it didn't end when her heart broke in the iconic 1963 hit, The End of the World. That song became her signature, a haunting cry of pain and longing that mirrored the heartbreak she carried throughout her life. Born Mary Frances Pennock in Kentucky, Skeeter had a childhood marked by tragedy and struggle, with a deeply troubled mother and moments of fear and violence at home. Music became her escape. In high school, she met Betty Jack Davis, and together they formed the Davis sisters, rising fast in the country scene. But fate struck cruelly in 1953 when the two were in a car crash. Betty was killed instantly, and Skeeter was badly injured, left to grieve and recover alone. That tragedy nearly ended her career, but somehow, she came back stronger. Going solo in the late 50s, she became one of the first women to break through as a country star, blending pop and country in a way that was fresh and unforgettable. She charted hits for years and influenced legends like Dolly Parton and Tammy Wynette, all while hiding her pain behind the spotlight. Skeeter's personal life was filled with heartbreak too, abusive and controlling marriages, a lifelong struggle for acceptance, and periods of isolation that chipped away at her joy. But through it all, she kept singing, kept touring, kept giving. She toured with Elvis, opened for the Rolling Stones, and stayed a proud member of the Grand Ole Opry for more than 40 years. Her voice was never just about sound, it was about feeling, and that feeling lives on. When breast cancer came back in the late 90s, it took everything slowly from her, her strength, her voice, her freedom. Yet she faced it quietly, never looking for pity. In the end, Skeeter Davis left us the same way she lived, softly, gracefully, and with a heart full of music. Her death wasn't just the end of a singer's life, it was the end of a chapter in country music history. But her songs, especially The End of the World, will always remind us of the woman who sang with sorrow in her soul and never stopped fighting to be heard. Gall, a beloved French singer whose life was filled with incredible music, deep love, and heartbreaking loss. She passed away on January 7, 2018, at the age of 70, after quietly battling cancer for 2 years. Her final days were spent in the American Hospital of Paris, where she had been admitted a month earlier due to a severe infection, which her weakened body, already worn down by illness, couldn't fight off anymore. Her death marked the end of a long, painful chapter, one filled with private suffering that the public only glimpsed. Gall, born Isabelle Genevieve Marie Anne Gall in 1947, came from a family of musicians, and by 16 she had already become a sensation in France. Her first big hit, Ne sois pas si bête, made her a teen icon, and at just 17, She won the 1965 Eurovision Song Contest for Luxembourg with the catchy and controversial Poupée Desire, Poupée de Sun, written by Serge Gainsbourg. Her sweet, innocent image and soft voice helped her dominate the French pop scene. But behind the fame was a young girl often misunderstood and even exploited. One of her most talked about songs, Les Sucettes, shocked her when she finally understood its hidden meaning, leaving her embarrassed and betrayed. And she never worked with Gainsbourg again. Her life took a brighter turn when she married Michel Berger in 1976, a partnership both romantic and creative, producing hits like Resist, Evidement, and the iconic La La. But tragedy seemed to follow her. Michel died suddenly of a heart attack in 1992, and just a year later, France was diagnosed with breast cancer. Though she recovered, the biggest blow came in 1997 when their daughter Pauline, who had been born with cystic fibrosis, passed away after years of illness. After that, France Gall slowly faded from the public eye, appearing only for a few special projects, including tributes to her late husband. Despite the pain, she remained a symbol of strength and grace in France, a voice that carried the dreams and heartbreak of generations. In her final years, she lived quietly, often dedicating her time to humanitarian work, staying out of the spotlight, and never fully returning to the stage. Her story is one of youthful fame, unexpected heartbreak, and quiet courage. France Gall may be gone, but her voice, her songs, and her deeply human story live on in the hearts of millions who still hum her melodies and remember the little girl who once lit up the stage with a smile, even while carrying the weight of so much sorrow. Annette Funicello, the beloved American actress and singer who captured hearts as a young girl and kept them through decades of smiles, songs, and sunshine, only to leave this world far too painfully on April 8, 2013, after a long, heartbreaking battle with multiple sclerosis. She was just 70 when she passed away at Mercy Southwest Hospital in Bakersfield, California, her family and close friend Shelley Fabares by her side. What made her death even more tragic wasn't just the disease itself, but how slowly and cruelly it took her away. Diagnosed in 1987, after she began experiencing severe dizziness and trouble with balance during a tour with Frankie Avalon, Annette kept her illness secret for 5 years, not wanting to worry anyone or spark rumors, until she finally revealed it in 1992 to stop whispers that her difficulty walking was due to alcoholism. Her fight with multiple sclerosis was long, painful, and devastating. Over time, she lost the ability to walk, then to speak, and eventually had to rely on a feeding tube. She required round-the-clock care in a quiet ranch home far from Hollywood's lights, where she lived her last years in almost total silence, locked inside a body that could no longer move or express the joy she was once known for. Despite everything, she kept her grace, strength, and quiet courage. Annette was born in Utica, New York, in 1942, and moved with her family to Southern California at just 4 years old. By the age of 12, she was already making history as one of the original Mouseketeers on Walt Disney's Mickey Mouse Club. It was Walt Disney himself who discovered her, and she quickly became the most popular face of the show. With her sweet smile, natural charm, and girl-next-door warmth, she became a national favorite. In her teens, she became a successful pop singer, giving the world hits like Tall Paul, O Dio Mio, and Pineapple Princess. Then came the 60s and her iconic beach party movies with Frankie Avalon, films like Beach Party, Muscle Beach Party, and Beach Blanket Bingo that made her a true star. But beyond the fame, Annette stayed humble, kind, and genuine. She married, raised 3 children, and stayed out of the drama that often comes with celebrity. Even when she returned to acting in the 80s for Back to the Beach and a nostalgia tour with Avalon, she kept her wholesome image intact, never chasing attention or controversy. After her diagnosis, Annette didn't fade away. She created the Annette Funicello Research Fund for neurological disorders to raise awareness and help others fighting diseases like hers. The last decade of her life was incredibly hard. She spent years unable to move, speak, or even eat on her own, her vibrant spirit slowly trapped by a disease that showed no mercy. But she never lost her dignity. She never stopped being loved. And when she finally let go, her children were holding her hands, saying goodbye with broken hearts. Annette Funicello wasn't just a Disney star or a beach movie icon. She was a symbol of innocence, strength, and grace through suffering. She lived with light, and even in her final, silent years, she stayed brave. Now, free from pain, she's remembered not just for her smile on screen, but for the quiet strength with which she faced the darkest parts of life. Nina Simone, an extraordinary American singer, pianist, and civil rights activist whose life was filled with brilliance, pain, and complexity, and whose final years were marked by illness and deep emotional struggle before she passed away on April 21, 2003, at the age of 70 from breast cancer in her home in Carry-la-Rouette, France. In her last days, Nina was quietly battling the disease while living a reclusive life away from the spotlight, the strength in her voice slowly fading while the scars of her long fight with bipolar disorder and years of emotional turmoil lingered heavily in the air around her. Her caretakers later revealed she had been secretly given psychiatric medication for years, sometimes without her knowing, as she often refused treatment, making her mental health incredibly hard to manage. Despite being so unwell, she still carried the spirit of someone who had survived so much personal betrayal, racial injustice, abuse, and rejection, yet never stopped speaking out or singing from the depths of her soul. Born Eunice Kathleen Wayman in Tryon, North Carolina, on February 21, 1933, she showed genius-level talent at the piano by age 3, with early dreams of becoming the first Black female classical concert pianist. Her life changed forever when she was denied admission to the Curtis Institute of Music, a rejection she believed was due to racism, a painful moment that stayed with her until the end. Ironically, just 2 days before her death, that same school awarded her an honorary degree. To survive financially, she started performing in nightclubs under the name Nina Simone to hide her identity from her deeply religious mother. And what started as a way to make money became the beginning of an unforgettable career. With her spellbinding blend of jazz, blues, classical, and soul, she created songs like I Loves You, Porgy, Sinnerman, Four Women, and Mississippi Goddam, using her voice as a weapon for truth during the civil rights era. But behind her talent was a storm she couldn't fully control: violent outbursts, gun incidents, public meltdowns, all symptoms of undiagnosed bipolar disorder for most of her life. She eventually moved abroad, seeking peace she could never find in America, living in Liberia, Switzerland, and finally France. Her finances were a mess, her relationships often toxic, and her daughter Lisa later described a childhood filled with both love and chaos. Yet the world never stopped listening. She was celebrated once again in the 1980s when My Baby Just Cares for Me became a hit in the UK, and in her final years, she performed occasionally and watched her legacy grow, even if her health declined. Cancer may have taken her body, but Nina Simone's voice, her rage, her passion, and her truth live on through every song that shakes your soul. She was not just a singer, she was a fighter, a survivor, and a mirror to the world's cruelty and beauty all at once. Anita Pollenberg, a woman whose beauty, wild spirit, and tragedy made her unforgettable, not just as a model and actress, but as someone who lived through chaos, heartbreak, and deep pain until her death on June 13, 2017, at the age of 75, from complications caused by hepatitis C, a disease that haunted her for many years and finally took her life while she was quietly hospitalized in Chichester, England. In her final months, she was frail, often in pain, and her once fiery energy had dimmed. After years of surgeries, including 2 major hip operations, she walked with a limp, struggled with relapses into alcohol, and carried the long-term effects of drug addiction and liver damage. Yet she had fought so hard to live a clean, meaningful life in her later years, often saying in interviews that she didn't think she'd live past 40. And by the time she was in her 70s, she told a friend she was ready to go, tired of the struggle and not wanting to lose her independence. Her son Marlon confirmed that hepatitis C was what finally broke her down. Born on April 6, 1942, either in Rome or Hamburg depending on the source, Anita's early life was shaped by war, separation, and a scattered family history. She spoke 4 languages, was expelled from school at 16, and floated between art schools, wild circles in Rome, Andy Warhol's factory in New York, and eventually the fashion scene in Paris. By the mid-1960s, she became a model and fell into the orbit of the Rolling Stones after sneaking backstage at one of their concerts. She first dated Brian Jones, but their relationship turned violent, and after a disturbing trip to Morocco where Brian physically attacked her, Keith Richards took her back to England and into his life. What followed was one of rock history's most chaotic love stories: 12 years together, 3 children, endless tours, arrests, addiction, and a bond that both lifted and crushed them. Anita wasn't just the girlfriend of a Stone. She was a true muse, influencing their sound, their look, and even their energy. She sang backup on "Sympathy for the Devil," appeared in the 1970 cult film Performance alongside Mick Jagger, and was widely believed to have had a short-lived affair with him during filming. But her life behind the scenes was full of dark turns. In 1976, her infant son Tora died from sudden infant death syndrome, a wound that never healed. In 1979, a young man accidentally shot himself in her home while playing Russian roulette. Though she was cleared of any responsibility, the event deeply scarred her and led to her breakup with Keith. Addiction dragged her further into the shadows, until she finally entered rehab in 1987 and stayed mostly clean in her final decades. She earned a degree in fashion from Central St. Martin's in the 1990s, made a quiet return to film in the 2000s, and tried to live simply between London and Jamaica. She refused to write a memoir, tired of publishers only wanting gossip about the Stones. Anita was never just a rock girlfriend. She was tough, magnetic, painfully honest, and full of contradictions. She was called a witch, a queen, a Valkyrie, someone who lit up rooms and also burned them down. Her death may have come quietly, but the mark she left was anything but. She lived through violence, addiction, loss, and recovery, and even though her body gave in after years of battling illness, her story still feels alive, messy, tragic, bold, and unforgettable. Markie Post, the beloved American actress whose bright spirit lit up our television screens for decades, but whose final days were filled with unimaginable pain and courage. Markie passed away on August 7, 2021, at the age of 70 after battling cancer for nearly 4 years. Even while going through aggressive chemotherapy treatments, she kept acting, treating her fight with cancer as her side job, because her passion for work and life refused to fade. In her last years, she acted in a Lifetime Christmas movie and appeared on the ABC series, The Kids Are All Right, choosing to stay strong and do what she loved while privately facing a cruel disease that slowly took everything from her. Her family said she continued smiling, making cakes for friends, sewing curtains, and showing kindness even when the treatments wore her down. That strength alone says so much about who she was. Born on November 4, 1950, in Palo Alto, California, Markie was raised in a thoughtful and creative home, her father a physicist, her mother a poet. She grew up in Walnut Creek, was a cheerleader in high school, and eventually earned her college degree from Lewis & Clark. Before becoming a familiar face on TV, she worked behind the scenes on game shows, writing trivia questions, and even dealing cards on air. But once she stepped into acting, her charm and humor won everyone over. She played Terry Michaels in The Fall Guy, but it was her role as Christine Sullivan on Night Court that made her a household name. She had that rare mix of comic timing, warmth, and grace that made her unforgettable. Later, she starred with John Ritter in Hearts of Fire, appeared in There's Something About Mary, and took on countless TV roles, from Scrubs to Chicago PD, where she played Sophia Bush's on-screen mother. Co-stars and friends poured their hearts out when she passed, calling her a rock, a light, and someone who made people feel safe just by being near. What hurts the most is knowing that such a gentle, generous, and deeply human woman had to go through such a long and hard goodbye. But through the exhaustion and the heartbreak of those final days, Markie never stopped being Markie, kind, full of love, and always thinking of others. She is survived by her husband, Michael A. Ross, and their daughters, Kate and Daisy, who shared how proud they were of the woman she was outside of fame. Markie Post was more than just a television star. She was the kind of person who made the world feel less harsh, just by being in it. And now that she's gone, there's a silence where her smile used to be, and it's a silence that hurts. Mary Pat Gleason, a beloved American actress and Emmy-winning television writer, who passed away on June 2, 2020, at the age of 70 after a heartbreaking battle with uterine cancer. Her final days were incredibly difficult. After bravely fighting the disease once before, it came back, and this time it spread faster and hit harder. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, her family couldn't be with her during her last hospital stay, which made her final weeks even more painful and lonely. Eventually, she was moved to a friend's home, where she spent her remaining days in quiet care until the very end. She had first beaten cancer back in 2015, but it returned more aggressively, and though she fought as hard as she could, her body simply couldn't take any more. It's devastating to think such a warm, talented, and kind-hearted woman had to go through so much pain in her final moments without the comfort of her full family around her. Mary Pat wasn't just another actress. She had one of those faces that you always recognized, even if you didn't know her name. Her career spanned over 40 years and included nearly 200 film and television roles. From shows like Friends, Will and Grace, Sex and the City, and Mom, to movies like A Cinderella Story, Traffic, Basic Instinct, and Bruce Almighty, she left her mark on generations of viewers. One of her most touching roles was Eleanor, the kind roller skating waitress in A Cinderella Story, who gave comfort to Hilary Duff's character when no one else did. Off-screen, she was just as inspiring, openly sharing her battle with bipolar disorder in her one-woman stage play Stopping Traffic, which ended up being used in Mayo Clinic's mental health programs. Her advocacy even helped shape how the entertainment industry treats mental health today. Born on February 23, 1950, in Lake City, Minnesota, Mary Pat found her passion for performing during high school, starring in local theater productions. She started her TV journey in the early 80s with a role on the soap opera Texas, and not long after, joined Guiding Light, where she not only acted, but also wrote for the show, earning her a Daytime Emmy in 1986. Even while silently battling her health issues, she never stopped working. Her last TV appearance was in Mom, where, in a moment that now feels haunting, her character Mary died of a brain aneurysm during an AA meeting. That episode would turn out to be her final scene on screen. To those who knew her, Mary Pat was more than an actress. She was a warm presence, a mentor, and a genuinely good soul. Her co-stars described her as comforting, funny, and deeply authentic. It's hard to accept that someone so full of light had to suffer through such a hard goodbye. But her memory lives on in every role, every laugh, and every heartfelt line she delivered. Mary Pat Gleason didn't just act. She made people feel seen, heard, and loved. And even in death, she continues to give through the legacy she left behind. Vivian Vance, the beloved American actress who made millions laugh as Ethel Mertz on I Love Lucy, yet spent her last years fighting a battle far from the spotlight, a painful, private struggle with breast cancer that would ultimately take her life. Diagnosed in 1977, Vivian first underwent a mastectomy and radiation, trying to stay hopeful, but the cancer came back aggressively and spread to her bones. By 1979, the pain had become constant, and despite the support of her husband John Dodds and close family, her body grew weaker with each passing day. She died at her home in Belvedere, California, on August 17, 1979, at the age of 70, surrounded by those who loved her most. Her passing left a deep wound in the hearts of her fans and friends, especially Lucille Ball, who later admitted how much she missed watching Vivian's brilliant, subtle performances, how every little movement meant something. Vivian's story didn't start in the spotlight. Born Vivian Roberta Jones in Cherryvale, Kansas, she grew up in a strict home where her passion for acting often clashed with her mother's religious beliefs. Rebellious and determined, she moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and worked in local theater before the community rallied to help her get to New York. There, she struggled before landing roles on Broadway and eventually caught the eye of Daisy Arnaz, who offered her the role that would change her life, Ethel Mertz. While she didn't like the idea of playing a frumpy sidekick or working alongside William Frawley, who was much older and difficult off-screen, she gave the role her all, becoming part of one of the most iconic TV duos in history. Later, she returned to television with The Lucy Show and continued to act, though health issues and exhaustion began taking their toll. Behind the laughter, Vivian also endured pain in her personal life, including a troubled marriage with actor Philip Ober, rumored to be abusive. It wasn't until she married John Dodds that she seemed to find some peace. But even that peace was short-lived as her health rapidly declined in the late 1970s. Her death was more than just a loss for television. It became a reminder of how breast cancer affects not just the body, but the spirit too. Vivian's courage through her illness and the love that surrounded her in her final days helped bring more attention to early detection and support for women facing cancer. She was not just a sidekick, she was a pioneer, a fighter, and a woman whose talent and heart made the world a brighter place. Her Emmy now sits in the Albuquerque Little Theater, the place where her dreams began, a full-circle tribute to a woman who gave the world so much joy, even while quietly carrying so much pain. Jacqueline Zean, the beloved American actress whose sudden death left a deep sadness in the hearts of everyone who followed her decades-long journey on television. Jacqueline passed away on May 9, 2023, at the age of 70 after a short but aggressive battle with cancer. Her final days came quickly and unexpectedly. Just a few weeks before, she had appeared in good health, sharing warm messages with fans to celebrate General Hospital's 60th anniversary, smiling and full of grace. Then came the shocking news. She was gone. She died at Los Robles Hospital in California, surrounded by loved ones, and those who knew her say the illness moved too fast to fully process. Her passing was not only a personal loss for her family and friends, but also deeply painful for generations of viewers who had grown up watching her on screen. Jacqueline was best known for playing Nurse Bobby Spencer on the long-running soap opera General Hospital, a role she held with incredible passion and heart for over 45 years. Her portrayal brought depth, emotion, and life to a character that started as a troubled young woman and evolved into a strong, loving nurse and mother. She appeared in more than 800 episodes, earning 4 Daytime Emmy nominations for her performance. Born in Englewood, New Jersey, on March 6, 1953, Jacqueline showed early promise as a dancer, training in classical ballet from age 5. So intelligent and driven, she graduated high school at just 15 and earned a dance scholarship to New York University. While still a teenager, she worked as a Playboy bunny to support herself and gain confidence in front of an audience, something she later said prepared her well for a life in entertainment. She began acting in soap operas in the mid-1970s and quickly became a regular on One Life to Live before being cast in General Hospital in 1977. Over the years, she also appeared in films like National Lampoon's Class Reunion, Young Doctors in Love, and starred in the streaming series The Bay, earning yet another Emmy nomination in 2021. But it was her role as Bobby Spencer that defined her legacy. Her fans loved her not just for the drama her character lived through, but for the warmth, humor, and realism she brought to every scene. Jacqueline's death was especially heartbreaking because of how sudden and quiet it was. Just a month before, she looked radiant, sharing a joyful video message to her fans. No one imagined it would be her last. Her death followed the loss of other General Hospital cast members, making it feel like the end of an era. Off-screen, she was a loving mother to 2 daughters, a loyal friend, and someone who brought kindness and laughter wherever she went. Her co-stars described her as a sweet, gentle soul, full of energy and love. Even in her last public words, she expressed nothing but gratitude for the fans who had supported her for decades. Jacqueline Zean didn't just act, she gave life to a role that became part of people's homes, hearts, and memories. Her light was bright, and though it left too soon, it will never fade.